Welcome to The Explainer. So picture this. You just got home from a genuinely fun evening out with friends. You lock the front door, lean against it, and just exhale. Like you've literally just run a marathon. You kick off your shoes and bam, all your energy entirely evaporates. Sound familiar? Well, today we're decoding this exhausting aftermath of socializing, specifically for highly sensitive people. And look, it's not all in your head, it's definitely not a character flaw, and yeah, it actually has a name. Let's get right into it. Starting off with part 1, the social hangover myth, and breaking that antisocial stigma. Okay, so let's validate that incredibly heavy, draining feeling right off the bat. For the longest time, society has labeled this exhaustion as a personal flaw, but we're reframing that today as a shared emotional hurdle. Seriously, have you ever felt like you've just been hit by a mental truck? You know that exact sensation, right? You just left a great party. You were laughing, the conversations were amazing, you loved the company, but the second you step into your car or get on the train home, whoosh. It's like this massive weight drops squarely onto your shoulders. It's a profound, whole-body fatigue that honestly feels entirely disproportionate to just standing around talking. Why does it feel like a literal physical impact? Well, here's the core mythbuster of our explainer. Society unfairly stigmatizes this exhaustion as being antisocial. You know, that nagging voice telling you that you just don't like people or you're being grumpy. But the biological reality? It's completely different. You are actually processing a high-resolution data dump. You aren't avoiding connection. Your brain is actively metabolizing a massive intake of intense social data. So you aren't antisocial at all. Your system is just, well, temporarily maxed out on processing capacity. Which brings us to part 2, processing the data dump, or your brain on overdrive. Let's look at the actual mechanics of this mental drain. And I want to reassure you right now, your brain isn't shutting down or failing you when you feel this way. Actually, scratch that, it's doing the exact opposite. It's working in absolute fiery overdrive. Think about what processing a high-resolution data dump actually looks like in real time. Just think about everything you absorb in a single 5-minute social interaction. You aren't just hearing the words, you're simultaneously processing micro-expressions, subtle shifts in tone, the background noise of the room, the whole dynamic of who's standing next to whom, and all those unspoken emotional undercurrents. As a highly sensitive person, you're basically recording the social environment in vivid 4K resolution, while everyone else might just be recording in standard definition. Your brain is furiously downloading gigabytes of sensory and emotional data every single second. It's a total flood of information that your cognitive hard drive now has to sort, categorize, analyze, and store. I mean, no wonder you feel like you need a nap. All right, moving to section 3. What is attention residue? The lingering effects of connection. Okay, let's slow things down just a bit. Take a breath. We're going to shift from that data dump metaphor into the formal psychological framework that actually causes this hangover. And framing attention residue as a formal concept gives some incredible scientific weight to the exhaustion we experience. Basically, attention residue is the lingering cognitive processing of past interactions that drains your present mental energy. When the party's over and you go home, your brain doesn't just cleanly switch off. Part of your cognitive bandwidth is actually still back at the party. You're replaying conversations, analyzing that one joke you made to see if it landed right, or trying to decipher a friend's heavy sigh. That residue clings to your mental gears, creating friction and actively draining your battery right now in the present moment. You can't fully focus on relaxing because a background app in your brain is still aggressively running the socializing program. Next up, section 4, signs of a hangover. Specifically, 7 signs you suffer from a social hangover. So how do we actually spot this in our daily lives? Well, out of those 7 signs from our source material, here are 4 undeniable ones you might be feeling right now. First, feeling hit by a mental truck, that sudden, jarring drop in physical and mental energy. Next, experiencing that high-resolution data dump. You know, the overwhelming feeling of having just way too many thoughts, emotions, and sensory memories swirling in your head all at once. Then lingering attention residue, the super frustrating inability to let go of the conversations you literally just had. And finally, needing time to defrost, that undeniable urge to just sit in absolute silence in a dark room. It's wild how the intense sensory imagery of a mental truck connects directly to this deep biological need to simply thaw out those frozen, overworked neural pathways. Which leads us nicely to section 5, the 48-hour defrost, resetting your highly sensitive brain. So, if you're experiencing these symptoms, what's the game plan? Let's pivot from the heavy symptoms to a really empowering biological solution, one that's absolutely required for introverts and highly sensitive people. The magic number here is 48, a massive validating 48 hours. And look, this isn't just an arbitrary number pulled out of thin air. This is often the exact amount of time highly sensitive people need to successfully and completely reset. It takes real time for that high-resolution data to be filed away properly. It takes time for the attention residue to fully evaporate. Giving yourself permission to take this time, that isn't a sign of weakness. It's a fundamental, absolutely necessary maintenance protocol for your specific operating system. Let's walk through this recovery journey, just to scientifically validate your guilt-free requirement for a full 2 days of rest. At 0 hours, the event ends. You are officially in the mental truck phase. You're flattened, completely exhausted, and literally running on empty. Flash forward to 24 hours, and you're deep in processing the data dump. You might still feel foggy, easily distracted, or maybe even a little irritable, because your brain is meticulously sorting through all that high-definition social footage. Finally, at 48 hours, you hit the fully defrosted stage. The attention residue is faded, your cognitive bandwidth has completely returned to the present moment, and you actually feel like yourself again. This is a biological journey, and you just cannot rush the thought. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. If socializing is a high-resolution data dump, how will you spend your 48 hours offline? I really want you to empower yourself to embrace your next defrost period entirely guilt-free. Plan for it. Protect that time. Wrap yourself in a cozy blanket, read a good book, and understand that your mind just did an incredible amount of heavy lifting. It absolutely deserves the rest. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. I hope this helps you navigate the beautiful but definitely sometimes exhausting aftermath of human connection. See you next time.